Hello everyone and welcome. In today's tutorial, we're going to go ahead and expand on our room a little bit so that we can add some other cool features like a mover. And if you're wondering what a mover is, quite simply, it's an object that the player or a bot or just an actor in general, it's an object that can be interacted with, and when it's interacted with, it moves. And there's a few different ways that we can set one up, but we're just going to go with the most basic for now, and we'll cover advanced topics on how to use movers in another tutorial. But first, we're going to need to expand our space so that we can put a place for our mover. Now, you remember our last video where we did some creative adjustments to some of the elements in our room, like our skylights and our little alcoves here in the back, to expand the space and improve the lighting. Well, we're going to break some of that, but don't worry, we're going to fix it at the end. But one thing that we're really going to need to do is just create some space here for our bots to run around and actually utilize the space a little bit better for what we're going to add. So let's start by grabbing the ends of our level. We're going to marquee select while we have the camera tool selected, and we're just going to select the back end of our level. We're going to select that little light bulb too. That's coming with us. And before we drag, we're going to click on one of the vertices of the BSP here. And one of the things that's going to do is it's going to make sure that if we were trying to drag by using the mesh, which is kind of off the grid, we might end up dragging everything in this selection, including the BSP, off of the grid, which we really don't want. If you have misaligned BSPs, you'll see little tiny edges and cracks in your geometry. And to save you from that, having to fix that kind of headache, that's why we click on one of the vertices for the brush, and we're going to control and left click drag on that vertice to make sure everything stays on the grid. And we're going to pull this over 256 units, so roughly the equivalent of one of these concrete squares, because we want to maintain the texturing in this space. So we're going to do that. We're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. Let's Control, Alt, and drag. I'm going to select our little light bulb too. We're going to select the little square down here and make sure it's highlighted red. And then we will Control, left click, drag by that square to make sure everything stays on the grid. Now we're going to expand our room. Let's go up to our vertex editing tool and just grab our vertices and pull this out a bit. And the same on the other side. Pull that out a bit. And now we're going to do some minor changes to these walls. We're actually going to make these a more integral part of the playable space. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. But first, we're just going to select this. Let's go into our view so that we can see what we're doing. And while we still have the vertex tool selected, we're just going to grab all of the verts. We're going to pull this back, and we're going to drag these verts on the left side over a little bit more. And we're basically going to take up these two squares on the floor. And we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. We're going to grab this brush here and drag those vertices out so that they're taking up these two squares here. And when that's done, we'll zoom out, deselect, and we're going to recompile everything. And you can see that we've got an error here. No paths from inventory spot 3 or 4. And if you want to know what these inventory spots are, you can double click on one of these entries. Let's find out which one inventory spot 3 is. And it's going to take your camera right to the problem child, which is this guy right here. So we're going to hit close. And yeah, it basically doesn't have any paths out of this space to connect to the other gameplay areas. So to fix this, we're going to grab our player starts on this side of the room. Whoops. There we go. We got them both selected. And go back into my camera view. And we're just going to drag these back so that they have line of sight to this power-up. And let's do the same thing on the other side. Let's grab our player starts here and here. And we'll drag these back. And now we're going to go ahead and build paths. And we shouldn't have any errors anymore. And we should be able to preview our paths by right-clicking and going into View and showing paths. And we can see now that we have connections to our weapons, to the player starts, and to the rest of the space as a whole. Which is excellent. So we've made our space extra wide. And part of the reason for that is we're going to add 3 additional pathways from another room to this space. And we're going to utilize these large concrete blocks as platforms. So what we're going to do is we're going to carve out one of the hallways to our new space. So we'll grab our preview brush and we're going to move it over here so it's coplanar with the floor, and it's going to be a big hallway. So we're going to go over here to our brush, our cube properties, right click. We're going to leave, actually no, we'll go ahead and make the height 512. We'll just make the entire thing 512 cubes. 512. Let's build that. Hit close. Let's drag this down. And then in our side view, we're going to drag this up. So that's coplanar with the floor and the ceiling. And let's go ahead and select a texture for that. And we'll just pick our typical concrete texture from the humanoid architecture pack. And we will subtract. Okay, so we've got our big hallway. And now we're going to create 2 small hallways on either side to connect back into this space. So I'm going to go back to our cube and I'm going to change the height of this to 256. And I'm going to change the breadth to 256 as well. I'm going to hit build. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this over so that it is lined up with our concrete platform over here, or our soon-to-be concrete platform. And I'm going to drag this up so that the top of it is coplanar with the ceiling. And we will subtract. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to make sure that this matches up with the platform and subtract. Okay, so Now we're going to build our room on the other side that is going to connect these three paths to this other room. So let's grab our preview brush and let's put it down here. And we're going to make this 1024 breadth and hit build. And this is going to be our room at the other end. And you're probably looking at this going, how are we going to get up there? When we subtract this, it's pretty high up. And there's no way that a player or a bot can jump that high. Well, we're not going to need to, because we're going to make a mover that's going to lift us up from the bottom floor to the second floor. Now, first I want to go ahead and connect these hallways to this room. And I don't want just any normal hallway. I want to do a curved hallway. And one of the ways we can do that is by using this tool right here, the 2D Shape Editor. The 2D Shape Editor is a way of defining a shape that the preview brush will take on, that we can kind of use as a stamp and use that to sort of carve out a custom shape. So when we go into the 2D shape browser, we're greeted with this interface right here. And these vertices are going to be one side of our preview brush here. I'm going to close this so we can see what's going on in the editor here, and also what's going on in these windows here. Let's zoom out. So let's take a look at this window, take a look at this window, so we can see all of them when we move this around. All right, so the 2D Shape Editor, again, this is basically looking at the preview brush from one of these sides, and it doesn't really matter which side you're looking at it from, because you'll be able to adjust that once we extrude or expand this shape into the third dimension. But we're basically just looking at it from one side so that we can make a custom shape, and that custom shape is going to then be extruded out or curved around or extruded to a point. It really just sort of depends on which result we want based off of these different extrusion methods. So when we're editing a shape right now, it's just a basic cube, and for our purposes that's going to be fine. But if you wanted to make this more than a cube, you can split these surfaces by adding extra vertices, and you can do that by pressing this button here, the split segments, and that's going to add another vertex into your shape. And you can hold down Control and click on it and drag it around, and you'll notice that there's a couple of different things here that are also displayed. This green box is the origin of this shape, and this is going to be important in a second, but essentially when you extrude this shape out, it needs to do that extrusion based on this origin. The other is that this orange cube right here, this is the center of your object, and it's not the true center, it's the center of the proportional volume of the object. So now that we've done that, we don't necessarily want to have multiple points on this brush. That's not going to be the point of using this tool. Instead, we're going to use this tool to make our curved hallway. So I'm going to remove that segment, and we're just going to keep it as a square, but I'm going to select all of these verts, and I'm going to drag them off to the side and up a little bit, and I'm going to move them over 2 grid spaces, or 2 large grid spaces, like this. And I'm moving them to the left of the origin. Now this origin is basically going to be the pivot point for our curved hallway, and it's going to essentially take this cube or this square shape, and it's going to extrude it in a curve in three-dimensional space behind this view that we are seeing. And to illustrate that, we'll go ahead and click on the revolved shape. And these aren't the default values. Usually the default value is 3, and the sides per 360 is set to 12. And we want something that's a little bit more high fidelity, so we're going to go with 6 and 24 sides per 360. So what does this math break down to? Well, imagine if we were making a cylinder that has 24 sides, and we only want to create a 90-degree segment of that cylinder. So we would divide this 24 4 times, so that, out of 360 we want 90, and we would get 6 sides. And so this is going to give us a 90-degree hallway. And then the x-axis, this basically refers to the axis that we are looking at for our view. So if we wanted it to be a three-dimensional hallway from this angle, we would specify the y angle. And so if I hit OK, now you're going to see in this view we have a whole bunch of lines that don't quite make sense in this perspective, but if we move our window over, you can see now that we have a curved hallway. And we can drag this into position. And I'm going to drag this off screen for now so that we can see what we're doing. I'm going to drag this down. I'm going to go into our new room here, and we're going to hit subtract. And we now have a curved hallway. Let's go into our top-down view and see that. And I want to duplicate this on the other side, so we'll go ahead and drag our preview brush so that the corner is right here, and we're going to hold down Control and right-click, and we're going to rotate this around 90 degrees, and we'll hit subtract again. And so now we have our curved hallways. And we're just going to leave it like that for now. Well, we are going to do one more thing. We're going to expand this room just a little bit further. We're going to duplicate this cube and center it. And then we're going to grab these vertices here and pull them back. Grab these vertices here, pull them back. And we'll just carry over our 45-degree wall motif that we have established in the other rooms. And set our room up like that. And we're going to compile everything. You can see our room is a bit dark, so we're going to take care of that with some lighting. We're basically going to copy over our wall light that we made earlier. We're basically going to go into our camera mode, select both of our lights here and the static mesh. Come up here and we're going to right-click and duplicate. And we're going to drag by the static mesh into our room. I'll place that there. And I'm going to hold down Control and right-click and rotate. And now move this back into position here. And we can see in our side view that it is not on the floor, so we're going to move that up. So now we should have a light in our room here. And if we really wanted to, we could also bring one of our skylights into this room so that we can get some extra light. So we're going to go ahead and marquee select both of our skylight brushes and our spotlight that we used for our fill. And we're going to duplicate this and drag it over our room. Like so. And now let's go ahead and compile everything. Yep, that's looking good. Now another thing that we're going to do is we're going to, well, first we need to texture our floors. Oops. We don't want that. We just want our floors. That's all we want. And also our floor over here. Let's select that. And we can close the 2D shape editor now. We won't be needing it. And let's go over to our textures. And let's find our concrete floor, which I'm sure is somewhere near the bottom. Whoop. Did I go too far? There it is. And you can see we've got some weird texturing going on in our hallway. Now, if we wanted to, we could spend a good amount of time just individually nudging these textures so that they are aligned to the curve, or we can go ahead and just align them to the rest of the textures of the floors that are surrounding them, which will be a lot easier. It won't necessarily be cleaner, but it'll be a lot easier. So we can right-click, go to Surface Properties, and then we can go to Alignment, Planar, and Auto should be fine. We can just hit Align, and now you can see our textures, aside from where they meet up with the segments of our room for our curved hallway, are aligned to the rest of the space. And then while we're at it, we'll do the same thing for the walls here because we can see some of this texture repeating. So we'll go ahead and select the walls of our curved surface. We'll select the walls of our hallways. And we'll select the walls of our room to make sure that when we do our alignment, everything is aligned at once. Okay, we've got all of our walls selected. Let's hit Align. You can see all of our textures snapping into position. And now this looks like a smooth transition from one edge to the other, going all the way through. And also, while we're at it, we'll go ahead and change the light map scale from 32 to 4 so that it's consistent with the rest of our level and we don't get the blurry shadows. All right, and then last we're going to just do the same thing once again with our ceiling. Just going to select all of our ceiling segments. Okay, that should hit everything. Let's select our ceiling texture, wherever it may be. It should be here in the list a little bit further down. There we go. And let's move this to the side. Stop fighting me. Let's right click, surface properties, and let's align those textures. And we also need to nudge these because this material over here was nudged so that we could get the corners of these to match up with the walls. So we're going to want to do the same thing in here as well. So let's go into pan, rotate, and scale, and we're just going to nudge that ceiling texture so that everything matches up. All right, looking good. We're just going to go ahead and set the light maps to 4. I realize we probably didn't do that with our floors either, so we can just select our floors one more time. We'll just do this one more time, I promise, and then we'll be done. We'll be done setting our light map values. Okay, got those. Do our floor here, surface properties, and set that to 4. Okay, so our lift, how is that going to work? Well, first we're going to need to create some more geometry, and it's going to be a custom shape that we're going to export into a static mesh, and then we're going to turn that static mesh into a mover. And this tutorial has already gone on for half an hour, so we're going to go ahead and take a break and pick up where we left off in the next tutorial now that we have prepared our space for our mover. So I will see you in the next video.